So in this second shorter video, I want to look at the final stanza here, the last part of the poem, and think about some of the metaphorical language that we have going on in there, metaphors and similes that we have going on in there. So it says, she spends her days, so we're back again, remember back in the deli, she spends her days slicing jamon y queso, Spanish for ham and cheese. She spends her days slicing jamon y queso and wrapping it in wax paper tied with a string. Plain ham and cheese that would cost less at the A&P, but it would not satisfy the hunger of the fragile old man lost in the folds of his winter coat. So let's just stop right there. I've got a comment over here that I say, click on it here, maybe we can see it. There. How could ham and cheese from one store not satisfy his hunger as well as the ham and cheese from another store? And then I say maybe he's hungry for something else. Because, of course, if you get ham and cheese from a place, it's going to be, one may be better ham and cheese or one may be worse ham and cheese, but they're both going to keep you from being hungry. I'm hungry, I haven't eaten in a few hours, I'd like some ham and cheese. It doesn't matter where you get it in terms of not feeling hungry, potentially. But it says that the ham and cheese from the A&P, A&P is an old grocery store chain, kind of like Stop and Shop or Associated or Seatown or something like that. And so it would cost less to buy the ham and cheese at the A&P, at the big chain grocery store, but it wouldn't satisfy his hunger. And I say in there maybe he's hungry for something else because, again, the same ham and cheese, it's plain ham and cheese. It would the same ham and cheese should make him not feel hungry. But if we go back to think about what we've been seeing in the rest of the poem, the people who come to the store do not necessarily only come there just for the food, right? It says, just what we had in the previous stanza, they all want the comfort of spoken Spanish, or they want to gaze upon the family portrait of her plain, wide face. So there's something else potentially that's going on here. So if we think about this hunger as not necessarily being a literal hunger, but a metaphor for these emotions that he has, his desire. He has hunger, not for the food, but for his home. He wants to be reminded of home, and we're using hunger as a metaphor for that. And that helps us. Using that hunger as a metaphor helps us because it means that that's something that you really need. I mean, if you're hungry and you don't do anything about it, you will die. If we say, look, I miss my home, and you don't do anything about it, well, you'll get sad, and you'll keep getting sad, but you won't really die. But she's going to use this word hunger because it's going to make it seem like, look, it's that important. It is like hunger. It is similar to what she does in, it's the same poet who did El Olvido, where she keeps talking about how it is dangerous, right? It is dangerous to forget the climate of your birthplace. Well, you're not going to die. It's not really bodily dangerous to do that. But she's using that dangerous as a metaphor to show us how important that memory of your birthplace is. And she's doing the exact same thing here. He is hungry, not necessarily for ham and cheese, but he is hungry for where he came from, right? And getting ham and cheese from this particular deli reminds him of being home, reminds him of where he came from. And so that's why that particular ham and cheese is going to satisfy that hunger. So he says the plain ham and cheese would not satisfy the hunger of the fragile old man lost in the folds of his winter coat, who brings her list of items that he reads to her like poetry. He's reading his list, his grocery list, like poetry. Now, usually we wouldn't think that a grocery list is poetry. It's just a list of things. I need some tomatoes, I need some beans, I need some carrots. That's not like poetry, right? If somebody turned that into a poetry class, you might say, that's just your grocery list. That's not good enough. But we're going to compare it to that. So it says she uses like. So it is and I'll let you answer that in your quiz. So now you've answered that. Why would she compare a grocery list to poetry? We said at the beginning that this poem, it's called an Ars Poetica, so it is a poem about what makes good poetry. And again, usually we wouldn't say, well, you know what makes good poetry? People's grocery lists. That's not really the case. But we might say that this man reads it like poetry because we're suggesting that to him it has the feel of poetry. It has the same level of emotions. It reaches into something as deep to him as a poem might reach, right? It's just a grocery list. But because it is the list of things that come from his home country, it's going to end up meaning so much more. And that's why we're going to make that specific comparison there. So whenever you're seeing these kinds of comparisons, that's what you want to think about. How is it that by comparing one thing to another, we're making us think about it in a different way, or we're potentially adding more emotions to it. We're making us feel about it in a deeper way than we might otherwise feel about it. And then at the end, it says this list that he reads were like poetry, or other people who come into the store, whose needs she must divine, she has to kind of figure out, right? Conjuring up products from places that now exist only in their hearts, closed ports she must trade with. And let's think about this, because what she's doing is she's comparing she's saying that we're talking about these closed ports she must trade with, conjuring up products from places that exist only in their hearts. I mean, if a place only exists in your heart, it's going to be it's going to be imaginary, and she's going to compare that to closed ports. She doesn't use like or as, so that makes it but so she's going to say that these places exist only in their hearts, like the places from their memory, the places where they used to exist, and they're a closed port. A port is a place where ships come in and we trade things, and so the food that you eat oftentimes is going to come in by ship and and be dropped off there and then be shipped by train or by truck to wherever you're going to wherever you're going to pick it up. And so she's going to say that these places that exist in their hearts are closed ports that she has to trade with. You can't trade with a closed port. If the port's closed, nothing is coming into that. Okay. But she's going to make this comment that she has to trade with these closed ports, which on some level seems impossible. But we might say that that's what she's doing in this store. She is going to be, even though these ports are closed, even though the people can't go back to their homeland, she is going to provide the thing that makes them feel as if they are back in their homeland. The ports are closed, that is, we can't actually get there. But she is going to provide these products that makes it feel as if they're actually going to be there. So we can see how important it is, and then we can go back to the why she uses all that religious imagery. If something is this important, then it might have a religious tone to it. It might feel as important as going to church. So when these people go to the store, it's not just, I'm going to the store and pick up some stuff. No, there's something spiritual about this. When they walk into this place, we talked earlier in the previous video about the votive offerings and the mother and child magnetized to the top of the cash register. And so it shows us that this place has some greater importance than just a place that you get food. It is going to have this potentially spiritual significance in the same way that a church can have a spiritual significance. So again, that's a metaphor that she's been using all the way from the beginning when she's been talking about things related to the church, because she wants us to know that the store is more important than it might seem on the surface. So again, just keep that in mind about how metaphors are going to operate, because sometimes what we can do is we take something that seems so simple and so basic, it's just a corner store, but we want to say this means something. There's something more emotional about this, and by using the metaphors and similes, we're able to express that.